Yeah, so I'm coming obviously from a, I suppose, a primary perspective, and the whole point of our team is to have this transition from primary into secondary and working together and thinking about how we can help with that transition. So Ryan and Connor, that was an absolute, like, really clear, fantastic explanation of the progression of coding from early into fourth level. It was so easily described. I've not seen it described like that before, so that was quite nice to have it kind of set out so clearly. I think we all really understood that bit more, kind of understanding the vocabulary that's within the benchmarks. I think in primary we focus a lot on literacy and numeracy, and the other things are kind of just added on a wee bit. But obviously, and I think too in primary we talk a lot about, kids are on track for technology, even though they perhaps haven't done very many of the technology E's and O's. In particular, computing science is one that is quite often missing. So, my kind of desire is that coding or computing science in primary is not just kind of a standalone thing. It is happening in classrooms. You think of a primary one classroom, kids are sorting shapes, or you've got numbers and they have to sort them into, if it's less than 5, it goes here. If else, it goes, it goes in this pile, and that's just, the rock, paper, scissors and the unplugged coding that we talked about earlier. It is happening. Pupils are working through the kind of that, I suppose, the computing science type curriculum. Staff aren't really aware of what they're doing necessarily. We're not making that link explicit, just because quite often it's not using a programmable device. We talked about obviously the importance of unplugged activities and helping kids to really get that understanding. So for me, obviously coding across the curriculum is important. It's not just a standalone. It's not just something we're adding on. We want it to be embedded across the classroom and across our curriculum. And I understand too that at secondary level, it's not just computing science teachers that are expected to teach computing science. Quite often it's, if it's maybe not offered at your school, it's possibly other teachers, and quite called, business teachers and things like that, or people asked to cover classes and they want it to be relevant. So I'm going to talk a bit more about how the microbit can help us to kind of engage our learners with something that's really highly relevant to them. And this is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So in primary, this is quite common to talk about these, in secondary less so. So just obviously helping again with that transition and understanding from primary into secondary. So these are the 17 goals. They represent a global call to action, obviously with connected to climate change, education, equality, and innovation. So they're not just the responsibility of governments and world leaders and presidents and things. They're something our young people care deeply about, and quite often care a lot more than us adults. It's their world they're living in, it's their world that has been affected, and something we really want to empower them to be able to tackle right from the classroom. And it's our job to educate them and inspire them to be able to find this important. So by using the microbit, we can combine some hands-on learning with real-world impact. So whether it's creating a device to monitor energy use, a system to reduce food waste, or designing solutions for better health and well-being, pupils aren't just coding, they're problem solving, they're collaborating with others, and they're taking action, which is the most important thing. So this kind of learning is not just relevant, it's urgent and it's necessary. When we're teaching our children to code for change, we're not just preparing them for the jobs of tomorrow. Essentially we're helping them to shape the future that they are going to want to live in. So I want to take you through a few ideas to help get you started. I already have mentioned, obviously you've already seen the Make Code website. There is endless stuff on there. There are lesson plans, there's videos, there's PowerPoints, ideas from embedding, specifically the Sustainable Development Goals through coding, but they also have a lot of unplugged activities to go along with it to support you, even if you're not comfortable, at using the device just yet. It's a great way to get started. So the microbit, it's a fantastic tool, obviously, for promoting health and well-being. We can see here, so this is Sustainable Development Goal 3. A very popular activity is to create a step counter. If you're thinking about, we do topics, I was in primary, you do the same in secondary. Kind of, maybe a group challenge, how many steps can we achieve? Can we think about, how we're relating this into social studies? You know, we're learning about the Titanic. We're learning about the height of Ben Nevis, width of the Nile, things like this. Whatever is coming up in your classroom, how can we link the step counter to this? You know, how long would it take us to walk the Wall of China? Probably primary 1 to 7. You're doing the Daily Mile every day. And again, on this, Miro board, there are links to the Make Code website, giving ideas for the projects that are there. Turn your microbit into a calming or breathing device. So again, simply, we've already used the little block coding that had the images, that had the heart on it. Just kind of going from one image to the other. I've used these quite a lot in my kind of cam box, and the kids go over when it's calm down time, take them, sit and kind of stare at the microbit and help them feel super relaxed. And the one I'd mentioned in the chat was using the dice for PE. I know it was mentioned about using it for rock, paper, scissors in PE as well. Fabulous idea. So like rolling a dice, what activity are we doing, or, rolling a dice for any sort of activity. So these sort of simple projects, they can really help to open up the conversations about physical and mental health, and helping the kids to take ownership of their well-being. And by designing solutions that support healthy lifestyles, pupils then can start to see, how innovation and empathy, both of these things go hand in hand. Okay, so here's another couple of ones. We've got Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is climate action, and 15, which is life on land. So tackling climate change can feel quite overwhelming in secondary school. Maybe teachers think that's not, it's not their job. How could that possibly fit into my curriculum? But through the microbit, learners can begin to feel kind of how small actions can make a big difference. So maybe they're building temperature sensors to monitor classroom environments, creating alerts when windows are left open or lights are left on, because the microbit has everything built within it, from a thermometer to light sensors to radios. Really just a fantastic little computer. Maybe they're designing weather stations to track local patterns. These projects, they kind of help kids to understand efficiency and environmental responsibility, but also at the same time developing their coding and problem-solving skills. It gives them a kind of sense of agency. They're not just learning about climate change and learning about, light and closing your windows. They're actually acting on it and doing it. So one of the most simple microbit activities is making a counting device. And that was talked about at the previous session. Super simple. But you think, well, counting, yeah, obviously we can do that in primary 1, but how can we actually make it relevant? So maybe it's, litter pick the number of unnecessary lights that are turned on in your school. Going for a little stroll around the school. How many printers and photocopiers are not currently working across the school, or how many angry teachers do you see fighting with paper at a photocopy machine? Just to get, make things a bit more interesting for the kids. Or think about, biology, the number of flowers, animals in a garden and stuff. And then obviously they can use that data for, the local park surveys, the RSPB, birdwatch survey is common. And the microbit website has it's called like Do Your Bit, and about kids actually using the microbit to make a difference. Coding your microbit to make sounds and make alarms to remind you to turn off your lights. You can also code it to when it gets to a certain temperature. Then it makes a sound, remind you to feed your fish, water the plants, walk the dog, and so on. Okay, lots of ideas there. So using the microbit to kind of protect life on land, it gives learners a chance to connect with nature, but through the use of technology. Whether it's building soil moisture sensors to support healthy plant growth, perhaps in your school garden, perhaps in your house. Designing alarms to protect bug hotels or bird feeders from huge predators, or tracking diversity in local green spaces. Our pupils can help to really value and learn to protect the environment. So the activities here, for me, the whole point is to promote curiosity, care, and critical thinking, and qualities that are absolutely essential for the next generation of our environmental stewards. So in this little feedback there is a presentation you can just click on and flick through. And it's got ideas for the other sustainable development goals. They're not all there, but it's give you ideas, and there's links within it. Not just the Make Code website. There's links to different YouTube videos and different websites with lots of ideas. And there, I'll pop that wee link in the chat. So that's just my it's a very small YouTube channel. And it does have code along videos within there. Most of them are, it's just the screen, it's just the code, it's not necessarily me even speaking through it. So it's something you can play in the classroom, pause, and let the kids work through it, or the kids can have the videos themselves. So if you just go to the playlist within there, you can see there's sort of a playlist for microbits within there. And if you get even more excited, there are some videos for the CuteBot. So it's a little robotic device that can be coded through our microbit. So any questions, please get in touch if you're looking for extra support, any ideas. Hopefully we'll start to see coding and computing science across the curriculum and not purely as a standalone subject in both primary and in secondary. So if you want to give any feedback, pop information there into the chat, into the wee feedback frame. Any questions, any information. Also, if you've been wondering who's been changing the size of your post-it, it's been me. They've been so small. I've been trying to make them huge to be able to read them. I think that, the important part that we're trying to get across, in today's session, the previous session, is that, computing science shouldn't be this, awful, scary thing. It's a lot of stuff we're already doing in the classroom. We're just thinking about how we can actually just use a device to go along with it. And because the microbits are everywhere, as we know, it's in all the schools. It just makes it, so much easier for us ideas. Oh, thanks, Annabelle. Why weren't doing it before? Yeah, we are doing these things. We're out counting, plants, and we're monitoring, rubbish and all these things with around us. We're just thinking about how we can make it a little bit more relevant. Yeah, absolutely. Computing science is ideal topics across the curriculum. You want kids not to be scared of it. They see a little device. I think the microbit can be quite intimidating. I think it looks quite nerdy, quite techy. And you want it to be something people feel comfortable with. Yeah, Ryan, agree too. Yeah, it's kind of maybe things that are quite difficult to tackle are the global goals, and where do we start? And I know how much you love them, Ryan.
I've got nothing against the global goals. I want that on record. They're fantastic if you have time to do them. And I think this is actually, all joking aside, a nice way to do that.
Yeah.
To bring it in without having to make too much of a point to divert the rest of the way. So I do.
Yeah.
It's very good.
And I think, Mark, as you say, trying to make the BG lessons, more engaging and interactive, so kids aren't scared. Maybe they're used to doing, I suppose primary, you try to make the things as fun and engaging as possible. And I'm desperate for kids to do computing science, but you want it to be for them to feel relevant, and important to them as well. So thank you.